Thank you so much for making some time with us.
Thank you.
We really, really appreciate you being here. Talking about agencies, I think about Trisha's conversation yesterday. Her context was corn. We'll talk about agencies. She talked about undervalued and misunderstood. And the ecosystem here, the performance ecosystem, the mobile ecosystem, I found in the last number of years that I feel like the agency topic, the agency opportunity, it's a little bit undervalued and misunderstood. So I think today we'll take advantage of that opportunity. We have an esteemed panel with us. Thank you all for being here. We have folks that have been in the agency world since many, many, many years, right, across the board. I'll let you guys introduce yourself, but I think in terms of context, we use this opportunity to tell some stories to this audience, right? Share with them some of the experiences we've had with brands, some of the important and valuable work we're doing for customers. We'll have some fun.
Excellent.
With that, I hand it to you, MK, for an intro.
Okay, so my name's Michael Kahn, go by MK. I'm the Global Brand President of Digitas, a global performance-rooted digital marketing agency. Started in 1980 in Boston, became Digitas in 1990, went public, and became part of Publicis Group, the third largest agency holding company. A couple things about Digitas. We do all forms of digital and data-led marketing at this point. We have data, technology, creative content, media, strategy, and client leadership teams, and have a huge footprint in North America. The biggest thing I want to say about the agency world, and we'll talk about more stories today, is it is a big business, and it is a business that's part of the marketing landscape. I was just in my mind wrapping up probably the total revenue that flows through all the agencies in this country. And I'd have to believe if advertising overall is a $500 to $600 billion category, there's probably total agency revenue is probably in the $75 billion range going through all the agencies out there. So they have a business, there's revenue coming through them, and they're a vital component of the marketing ecosystem.
Agreed. Hand it over to you, Mick.
Hi, I'm Mick Rigby. I'm the founder and CEO of a pure-play mobile app marketing consultancy called Yodel Mobile, and we launched about 12 years ago before the iPhone had launched, and it was a very different world then. A lot of .wap, if you guys remember that, .wap, buying on Nokia phones and using a lot of the carrier marketing solutions to actually talk to our potential customers. And as I say, the world has changed massively in those 12 years, and we're still there. We're still doing app marketing and doing a good job, I guess.
Yeah, indeed. Eric?
So I'm Eric Munier. I'm the SVP of MNC Saatchi Mobile in the US, where we started the company as a mobile marketing agency 12 years ago, actually, as well. Focusing on various kind of mobile ecosystem or mobile production, mobile media, and strategy back in those days, the same one that Mick just mentioned. We've been focusing over the last 5-6 years around performance marketing. So even though our heritage is mobile, we've expanded that to a digital performance play. So touching all the digital screens that you can have, including OTTs, and there might be a lot of challenges. I would say OTT is becoming the new mobile, how it was a few years ago. So we really understand the performance and the value of the users through mobile devices, mainly.
Right.
Cool. And my name is Al Harnish. I'm the VP of Growth at an agency based in Brooklyn and San Francisco called Prolific Interactive. Unlike the rest of the panelists, we don't do any advertising. Our roots are really in product development, building iOS and Android apps, helping brands figure out their mobile strategy and really how to take advantage of mobile and how to integrate it into their business. And then once there's an app ecosystem, that's kind of live, it's in the App Store, we, and specifically my team, helps the brands grow those apps in the context of kind of their broader marketing plan, their broader data ecosystem, making sure everything's integrated, everything's tied together, and we're really making apps that are driving impact rather than apps that are just kind of checking a box.
I love the diversity that's sitting within this group, and I think typically some of our customers and our partners think about agencies specifically through the lens of performance. But now we have such a diverse group here, and Mick, I think I start with you. You and your agency focus on strategy, and we were sharing some stories yesterday around a company like Teletext that you work with. Talk to me about the importance of strategy in the work you're doing for your customers and how that translates into success.
Sure. Do you remember when we were chatting yesterday, I was talking about marginal gains? And for you guys out there, I don't know if you know this, but marginal gains is about making lots of little things slightly better and continually doing that month in, month out. And it's a principle that the British, obviously British, the British cycling team have brought to their performance, and the reason that they won the most gold medals at the last 2 Olympic Games. And marginal gains for them means bringing their own pillows. So they
Sorry, did they not bring that to the World Cup team?
Next time.
Okay.
Give us
All right,
4
sorry to
years.
interrupt.
Give us 4 years. But yeah, so they bring their own pillows, they don't shake hands, they make sure that the pressure in the tyre is relevant for their weight, and so on and so forth. They do a lot of these. So the British cycling team isn't particularly any better than any other team, but by doing all these things, all those tiny fractional elements add up to a big 10, 15, 20% more impressions. So the story that I'm telling is all about what we do as a business, and we're focused very much on that marketing funnel from an app perspective, from user acquisition straight through to user retention. And every month we look at every single aspect that we can. We evaluate, we use great data, and we evaluate what impact we can make, and then we'll focus on 2 or 3 of those things and make a marginal gain. So you're continually doing that month in, month out, and ultimately across a 12-month period, you're making a big, big difference.
Yeah, and with somebody like Teletext, just to dig in a little deeper, again, the perception is agency, paid media. But in the stories that we were talking about yesterday, you found opportunities to drive excessive and extreme lifetime value from a customer without spending a penny.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Yeah, it's a great case study, you can imagine. And it also comes up every pitch that we do. But so Teletext, for anybody that doesn't know, it's a British holiday brand, very old school. We were engaged by those guys about 2 years ago to work with them. And when the brief arrived, they didn't have any budget for paid user acquisition. Yeah. So thankfully they had enough money in the budget to pay our fees. But what we did with those guys is really focus on the organic discoverability. So App Store optimization, app packs, virality, and built a full 360 discoverability package around it. And as a consequence of that, we blew all of their targets out of the water, and every single conversion that we achieved in terms of bringing a new user in that eventually went on to purchase was worth around about $100 per user to the client. I mean, it was brilliant.
Yeah, it's a great story. Shifting topics a little bit,
Yeah.
MK, you have been in this business many, many years, and in the role that you sit within Digitas, you have the opportunity to sit with senior leadership at some of the biggest businesses in the world.
Yeah.
Throughout the last few days, we've been talking about data. We've been talking about thick data, big data, all the reams of data that we have access to. Talk to me about how that impacts the role of the CMO today.
So I think you asked a question before about, agencies and the role with brands and the role of all the needs being focused on performance. That has washed over to all CMOs. As we were talking about in preparation for today, the average duration of a CMO now in a company is 12 months. And then they're changing that. And that's because he or she has to show ROI and return on investment in every investment they make along the way. And that's tied to brand efforts, that's tied to performance efforts, that's tied to paid, own, and earn content strategies along the way. Well, at the rooting of having ROI metrics and being able to tell your story to the board is going to be your data systems and infrastructure. And that means that now more than ever, CMOs have to be chief data officers as well. They have to build out that ecosystem. More and more of the CIOs in these companies are reporting up into the CMO, and they're being asked to measure and report on everything they do. And the agencies that are working for them have to be suppliers now of data systems and architecture and consulting to power that. And if you can't tell that whole story, how all of the work you're doing attributes back to a measurable outcome on behalf of the business and revenue and franchise, you won't be there either.
Right, so if I'm thinking about through the context of our audience, today's growth marketer is tomorrow's CMO.
Yeah, and one other data point I'll make that we were looking at within our own portfolio, Digitas has a huge data community. We have about 500 data scientists that are part of the agency. Now we have probably 12 people that started in our data science team that are now CMO customers of ours because they've all gone into the client ranks. And
Makes
that's not an
total sense.
unusual story.
That makes total sense. And I want to talk a little bit about transformation as well in this audience and with this group of folks. I mean, Eric, from your perspective, there's transformation and digital transformation that are happening within businesses. You know, MNC Saatchi Mobile has such a long and illustrious history. How do you stay relevant as an agency? How have you had to transform the way you're thinking about business and thinking about mobile through the context of your businesses to continue at the top of the field?
So that's a good question, and I think the digital space, the mobile space, and those various kind of platforms and innovation are changing every day. You know, the space that we were in, 6 months ago is very different than today, and don't get me started on how it was 5 years ago. So it's changing every day, and you need to evolve. You need to kind of stay on top of innovation. And the best relationship that you're going to have with clients, they know their product or service better than anyone else, obviously. Agencies tend to know the market on those specific areas better than their clients. So working in a very close partnerships is critical. The best relationship, the best results that we're going to achieve is by really being an extension of their team. And I know it's like everyone is saying that, but that's been really true for us. We've kept clients and we've been working for clients for the last 10 years. And this is critical to develop the performance, really understanding and working together so we are as close as possible to the product and services that they want to market. And then we understand that and we can translate that into the data points. Data obviously is very important to our, in our company as well. Everything is measured. We're a performance agency at heart, and everything will be measured and really pushing for the best results and scale. What's really important to exceed those expectations and those results is to be as close as possible, with obviously the clients and as well as the partners around it.
Right, so I assume there's just a stickiness associated with that, right? You become an extension of their team. They really can't live without you. I mean, Al, I want to think about on the other side of that, digital transformation, because I know that's really important to the work that you're doing. And we started chatting, I think, about Edward Jones as one example, but talk to us about how you, as Prolific and your team, either leveraging data and all the access you have to information to help inform that digital transformation for a customer like that.
Sure, yeah. Well, Prolific was fortunate to be in a place over the last 5 or 6 years where, we maybe 7 years ago decided to, hey, let's go all in on mobile apps. It seems like it's going to be a big thing. And then over the last 5 or 6 years, that assumption was proven correct. And we were fortunate to work with all kinds of brands, not only on, hey, we need an app, can you build it with these specs? But it was more like, hey, we need to get into mobile. We have no idea where to start. Like, we need someone who can really kind of help figure this out and be a partner to us. And that's really how our business has evolved. So we're fortunate to kind of come out of that experience on the other side, not only being, strong at building mobile product, but also strong at advising on how to really turn your business, which might be a little more traditional, into more of a mobile-focused business. In terms of the culture of the team, but also in terms of the experience of the user. So with Edward Jones, if for those unfamiliar, they are have franchised the idea of your local financial advisor, and they have a really successful business, but a lot of their clients are on the older side and starting to approach retirement. The problem for them is that once you hit retirement, you're pulling money out of Edward Jones instead of putting it in. So they need to figure out how to attract a younger user base and really start to talk to the children and grandchildren of who are today their clients. But if you go to Edward Jones branch and say, hey, I want to use you for financial advice, they'll say, okay, great, why don't you fax us all of your financial documents. I'm like, listen, I don't keep physical records of my financial documents, never mind have a fax machine. And so, they have some work to do, long story short. And so what we've been helping them with is really taking it a few steps ahead of, hey, you need more than a website, you need more than a mobile app, you really need to rethink the experience of what it means to come to an Edward Jones branch, and what happens after that. And if you want to really be an Edward Jones customer and use them for financial advice over the next 40 years or 50 years, throughout all the major decisions for financial decisions in your life, you really need a way to access them that's more modernized. So we've been helping them kind of with holistic digital transformation, but really taking the perspective of what is the customer journey from the day you walk in on your first appointment until the day that you buy a house, that you have your first kid, that you have to pay for college, that you decide you want to retire. What does that experience look like, and how can we really reinvent that through a mobile-first way, in a way that we can access that and have more seamless communication, leveraging mobile apps, mobile websites, stuff like that.
I think I was going to say that's so huge is that I think, we become definitely an experience-based economy, and it's an experience-based marketing world. So I know so much of the audience here today is about mobile applications and marketing, but that's just is part of the ecosystem now. And if you're not creating connected journeys on behalf of the consumer, you're leaving all kinds of opportunity on the table, and then you can't even get to the marginal gain models that you want to, because it's only through managing all the channels together that you can create the right customer experience that, again, that person now expects.
Yeah, and harping in on the journey, right? Journey is on desktop, journey is on mobile. We started talking a little bit about OTT yesterday, and in a lot of ways, to me, this is starting to feel like the Wild West that mobile felt like, that digital felt like. I mean, Eric, are your customers coming to you talking about OTT, thinking about that as a platform that's important to them?
Yeah, we've got a few clients in the space that are really focusing on trying to replicate what they're doing on other channels like desktop and mobile, and trying to drive performance media across those channels. The space is obviously very different right now. There's those large publishers or platforms that are controlling the ecosystem. There's very limited tracking on a lot of them. So this is an area that is going to evolve very quickly. Quickly, I don't know, but that's going to evolve massively over the next few years. And working out solutions with clients with the constraints that the ecosystem is providing is critical. And I would say, we talked a lot about the data, obviously, over the last 2 days. There are clients that, for whatever reasons, will not, have the data or be able to share the data. So working around their, their constraints and what they can provide or can't provide, even if it's not an ideal world, and it never is, right. is also critical. Adjusting and adapting to the client's needs, not only in terms of performance, but also in terms of what's available, what platforms they have, how can we fill the gaps, with technology or without, and find ways to work around their constraint is also really critical to performance.
Makes sense. There's an area to dig in there that I think about often, which is the role of the agency specific to marketing technology. And I'm curious because we hear stories now about agencies, they were never built to build technology, right? Agencies leverage the technologies that their customers had. I mean, Al, you have a really specific approach to marketing technology that I want to dig into. MK, you have exposure to, the largest agencies actually now acquiring data companies, the Axiom 2-point-whatever billion-dollar deal. Well, I mean, what does that look like for you and for your agency?
Well, I'll just answer because we probably all have views on that because it's washed over our entire world. So part of Publicis Group, giant agency holding company, owns Digitas and Starcom and Leo Burnett and Saatchi & Saatchi. They've now created a platform that they're going to market with. They're bringing all of the data scientist community together, which is called Publicis Spine, and that's going to be a giant community to raise the tide for everyone. And we're creating the Publicis People Cloud, which is going to be our platform to leverage data in the marketplace, clients' data, third-party data, have a single ID, and make that the center point for driving marketing strategy. Both strategy to pinpoint audiences, strategy to set the media plan, and strategy to set creative content and social messaging along the way. And that is now going to be a bespoke technology we're creating We've already brought it to market. We're scaling it across it. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, that wasn't a core competency of the agency world, and now you have to be investing in that. Otherwise, you're not adding the value to the clients you need to.
It really is a new world
Yeah,
order.
it
And
is.
so Al, you guys, I know, take a really specific approach to understanding a customer's marketing technology and making recommendations. Like, what does that look like through the lens of Prolific and the work you're doing?
Yeah, well, to go back to taking a mobile-first approach, what we see, especially in like Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 brands, is we'll go into a business and they are looking to make their mobile ecosystem more valuable, and often we see that they'll have like Adobe or like Omniture or IBM's Core Metrics or something like that they use as their mobile analytics, CRM, sometimes the ESP, stuff like that, and I'm of the opinion that that's not the way that tomorrow is going to look, and even not the way that certainly mobile is being approached today in terms of best in class. And so what we do a lot is like we'll assess kind of the current what's in there today, and then we'll say, okay, well, it's our job to make you guys best in class. And what best in class looks like, especially on mobile, in my opinion, is not these marketing clouds that have been around for 10 or 20 years. It's taking, a lot of the brands that you might see today, whether it's Tune or mParticle or, any of these other, more niche tools that have been coming out of the last 10 years, kind of this mobile revolution, who are now really kind of taking it beyond mobile, bringing it back into web, bringing it back into email, bringing it back into all these other experiences. And we want to set our brands up to have a best-in-class set of tools so they can kind of run with a more modern approach to marketing and to product and to personalization. And it ties into their data warehouse in a much easier way. It's all much simpler, stuff like that. So what we do is really kind of lay out, hey, here's the capabilities we think you need. Here are the tools that we would recommend. We don't necessarily give one specific tool and just say, hey, you should use this, like pushing specific tools, but it's more like, hey, you're going to need a CDP, you're going to need mobile attribution, you're going to need a strong analytics tool. The tools that you have in place today don't necessarily cut it. So let us provide introductions to 2 or 3 competitors in each of these capabilities and make sure that you have a well-rounded perspective on the space and really kind of bring them into the space. And then we kind of make the decision on what makes sense together. At the end of the day, each tool has either a slight or major variation of their capabilities. They have different price points. They're located at different places. There's different relationships. So there's a lot that goes into it. We don't really want to make that decision on behalf of the client, but we certainly guide them through it and make sure each of our brands has a unique stack that's suited for them and make sure that it covers all of their needs.
I just want to say real quick,
please,
what's so
hit on that.
fascinating is it used to be that you'd sit down with a brand and you'd say, who's your target audience? That would be the starting conversation. Now so often is, what's your tech stack? And what data do you have today and how you organize your data systems? That almost precludes who is it you're trying to reach.
Right, and it's changed the nature of the talent that you have to have within your organizations. I mean, I told you, MK, in conversation that the work I've done with your specific teams in mobile technology for them to understand the ins and outs of our technology, it really is a shift in talent. And shifting again into the business of being an agency, right? This continues to change, just like it's always been the year of mobile again and again and again. It's also the year that agencies are going to die, right? And so I want to dig into that for a second, but Mick, something really struck me in our conversations over the last few days. I think I have to say you're the first agency I know that actually turns down business. Is that true? Dig into that a little bit with me. How does that look? I mean,
yeah, I've just learned a lesson there. Never drink with the man that then brings up that conversation the next day.
I mean,
there was too many beers last night. That's so we're all about success, right? We're all about trying to do the best thing for our clients. And I've been running a business now for about 12 years, purely in the mobile and app space. We've made a lot of mistakes over those 12 years. We've had a lot of failures. We've also had huge success. So there's 12 years worth of experience and understanding in the mobile and specifically the app marketing space. And we get a lot of business coming to us, and they ask for our services because of the specialism we work in. And then the brief arrives, and you look at the brief, and that brief arguably isn't achievable. And it isn't achievable because you look at the product and their user acquisition their registration within the product may be poor. Their analytics are atrocious. They're not getting single view understanding of those individuals. The push priming is just non-existent. So you've got all of these elements that aren't going to work. And when you get a brief which is all about delivering an engaged audience over a period of time, and you look at that and say, well, that's not achievable unless that particular business changes all of these things and implements all the suggestions that we're putting into place, we cannot do that. And ultimately, we will not be able to deliver the success to that particular client based on what they want to achieve. So you have to, at that point, look at it and say, look, if you're not prepared to do that, we're not prepared to spend a penny of your money. I tell you, it's a very cathartic thing to be able to say. And I suppose because it's my business, I can actually say that.
Right, the joy of being an independent.
Yeah, it's great. So yeah, turning business away, it's very, my FD doesn't like it, but hey ho.
Nor your family, but it's okay. We'll get back
exactly.
to that. So MK, I mean, the conversation comes again and again. Who's going to attack the agency business next? And I think topic du jour is probably the consultancies, right? The more I hear about talent being poached from Accenture, and Accenture's coming after this business. So I guess, is that a real threat for you? And sort of what does the agency look like, or does it exist in 10 years?
Well, so I think a couple things. I think it's a real threat. I think when you look at the fastest growing agency service-like companies, they are the consultancies of Deloitte and Accenture. They're the ones that are winning the Agency of the Year status. They're buying up activation units, whether they're media units or search units or creative units, so they can now do strategy and building out tech and do message delivery along the way. So that's for sure. The second thing is that the agency world, made up of giant holding companies, independents, was all put out there to capture demand. It has been rolled up over time, and more of the giant holding companies are creating platforms and acting more like consultancies. So as I was sharing with you, the H and holding company is getting bigger, the brands inside it are getting smaller, and it's more about portfolio management of the entire enterprise and what we'll call power of one solutions. I think the agencies have the advantage in delivery and connective activation and being able to drive optimization strategies at scale. I think they have a reason for being and always will. I think the bar's gone up on how good they can become with data and tech to power those things going forward. If they're gonna be still as relevant 10 years from now as they are today, or now it's just literally a giant delivery business of some kind.
That makes a lot of sense.
I just want to add on that, because I think the consultancy companies are really good at understanding and planning from a very strategic perspective. There's a lack of connectivity and connections between the strategy and the execution. What an agency is really good at is also to understand and plan with what is possible in mind. That's also critical. Like, if you don't understand what's actually possible, there's no point in having a blue sky idea that will never be executed. So I think this is critical, and that sometimes some consulting firms don't really understand what's technically possible, specifically in that very fragmented space.
And the specialization that you all can bring to your customers because of your experience in these areas is the difference. There's no question. So gents, we're out of time here. We hit a zero. Thank you again for imparting the knowledge, for spending time with us. Hopefully it was valuable for everybody in the audience. And again, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.